just move that slightly closer. Firstly, welcome on behalf of the Cheadle Civic Society who have organised this event. As you will have seen from the leaflet, they have several events going on this year, but also they're continuously working in the village and around this area to improve the area as well. So please do be supportive. They also have a newsletter you can sign up for on email, as well as social media and a website. So have a look, see some of their other events. My name is Lucy Dusgate. I'm hosting today. I've got Martin and Kate with me. I'm going to do, because they're very accomplished, both of them, I'm going to have to read the notes that I've got for them. Quite often I just go from memory, but with both of these, because they're so accomplished, I'm going to read about them first initially. Just to let you know, today is about an hour-long event. We've got roughly 3/4 of an hour talking, hearing about the Agatha Christie connection locally, talking about the author's work as well individually, so you can find out more about their work. So I'm going to go alphabetically, starting with surname. So Martin Edwards. Latest novel, Hemlock Bay, and Mrs. Winter in the Library with a Knife. Author of the Harry Devlin, The Lake District, and Rachel Savanake series. Martin has won 3 daggers, they are awards, including the Crime Writers Association Diamond Dagger, and has received 2 Edgars, which are from the Mystery Writers of America. He has received a Lifetime Achievement Award for fiction, non-fiction, short stories, and scholarship, and is the consultant on the British Library's crime classics. He's also currently consulting and contributing to the British Library's centenary Agatha Christie exhibition and publication, so you will hear more about that as we talk. He's former chair of the Crime Writers Association and has been president of the legendary Detection Club since 2015. His 7 predecessors to that role include G.K. Chesterton, Dorothy L. Sayers, and Agatha Christie. Kate Ellis, who is also a bell ringer here, amongst her other interests. But Kate was born and brought up in Liverpool and has worked in a variety of jobs before discovering crime writing and fiction was what she really wanted to do all along. Kate has written 29 novels featuring archaeology graduate D.I. Wesley Peterson and 5 supernatural crime novels featuring D.I. Joe Plantagenet, along with a trilogy set on the aftermath of the First World War featuring Scotland Yard detective D.I. Albert Lincoln. Her latest Wesley Peterson mystery is Deadly Remains, published in August 2025. Kate has twice been shortlisted for the Crime Writers Association Short Story Dagger and has been awarded the Crime Writers Association Dagger in the library in 2019. She is a member of the Crime Writers Association and was also been elected to the prestigious Detection Club in 2014. Please, can you welcome them? Thank you. So, as most of you will probably know, Agatha Christie's sister used to live at Abney Hall, and I think during the whole time that she was there, Agatha Christie used to come and spend her Christmases to the service here in this church. So there's a very strong local connection that we have here. And I wondered if both of you, starting with you, Kate, first, could just talk about, in terms of Agatha Christie, as you as a writer, how that's influenced you in any way.
Well, I think she's the biggest influence on my work, certainly, and on crime writing in particular. Her books caught the public imagination from, especially after the murder of Roger Ackroyd, which broke all the rules of detective fiction in some ways, but was so original. And her breadth of work as well, so, you know, the Poirot, the Marple, the Tommy and Tuppence, and I just think her plotting and the solutions to her mysteries, which all fitted together somehow, and they were the kind of books you think, oh, I should have seen that, and I never did.
And Martin, Agatha Christie was one of your first inspirations, really, wasn't she?
Yes, the very first, actually, Lucy. In if I go back to when I was 8 years old, which is a very, very, very long time ago, I went to the world film premiere of Murder Most Foul, which was shown in a tent in Great Budworth in Cheshire, surprisingly, but it is true. And it was a big event. The fate was opened by Margaret Rutherford, the star of the film. It was a huge occasion, very bizarre, but huge occasion. It made a great impression on me. I'd never heard of Agatha Christie, but I went home that night, and after a very exciting day, and my grandmother was living with us at the time, and she had some Agatha Christie paperbacks, 3 and 6pence, Fontana paperbacks, and I found one that had Miss Marple in the story, The Murder at the Vicarage, and I started reading. It's my first adult fiction, and I loved it. I loved the clues, the red herrings, the surprise solution, and really from that moment on, my fate was sealed, because firstly, I wanted to read as many detective stories as I could lay my hands on, and secondly, from that age, I also wanted to write them. And I wanted to become the new Agatha Christie. And I wrote my first series at the age of 10. I still have the books with their copyright notices, so nobody could plagiarise my masterpieces. Strangely, however, they were never published. But that's where it all began for me.
And Kate, where do you think the public popularity comes from for Agatha? Because she is so popular now, which wasn't always the case.
Yes, she has lasted longer than any other crime writer, really. I mean, there are equally brilliant writers, Dorothy L. Sayers, Josephine Tay, who is one of my personal favourites. But somehow Agatha has caught the public imagination. I think it is her plots. And they are so brilliant. I mean, who can forget Murder on the Orient Express? I mean, The 12 Good Men and True. Oh, I hope I haven't spoiled that for anyone. But,
just brilliantly written as well,
yes,
in terms of... do you think she brought a sort of a fresh way of writing as well?
Yes. I hadn't read an Agatha Christie since I was probably in my 20s. And... I've seen the Poirot adaptations, the brilliant ones by David Suchet and Joan Hickson as Miss Marple, but I hadn't actually read one of the books. But I'm taking a book club at Abney Hall, studying some of Agatha's books, actually set in a thinly disguised Abney Hall. And so I've had to read them, and they are so good. I was surprised that I'm really engrossed in them. They are really good.
And Martin, we're seeing a real attention around this year for Agatha. Can you tell us a little bit about the British Library project you're involved in at the moment?
Yes, well, on 30th of October this year, the British Library will open a new exhibition dedicated slowly to Agatha Christie and her world. It's called Agatha Christie, A World of Mystery. And it will be the biggest exhibition the British Library has ever staged. It's going to run for 8 months. And it will be, as I was told the other day by somebody from the British Library, admittedly, it will be the hottest ticket in town. I think they're right because of this extraordinary global name recognition that Agatha has. As Lucy mentioned, I'm involved in it, and in particular, I'm co-editing the book of the exhibition with the lead curator, another Lucy Rowland, and so it's been our job to write some of the book, but mainly to get a very wide range of contributors from around the world, including
me.
Kate Ellis, to write different pieces. About all kinds of different aspects of Agatha. It would be a heavily illustrated book, and I saw the first, as they call them, spread the other day, and I think it will be a terrific tribute to Agatha's enduring legacy.
And that will be an exhibition at the British Library as well as a publication there as well.
Yes,
so
it's
if people can't make the exhibition, there's the opportunity.
It's in the tradition of the exhibition catalogue, but the British Library wanted it to be a super-duper book, and I think it will be.
And in terms of Agatha's connection here, this locally here in Cheadle, this was where at one point in life she sought solace. She literally, from behind the gates of Abney Hall, she had a refuge.
Yes.
Can you both sort of explain a bit about the circumstances of?
Yes, she went
that
missing for 11 days. And there was a huge manhunt and nobody knew where she was. And she eventually turned up in a hotel in Harrogate. But after that, she was very close to her elder sister Madge, who lived at Abney Hall. After that, she went straight to Abney Hall, sort of avoiding journalists and photographers. And Madge's husband, James Watts, who is the pub is named after, he shut the gates and padlocked the gates and gave her refuge in Abney Hall.
Yeah, it was the days when you could literally shut the gates and people weren't allowed.
That's right.
That's right. And it was a very traumatic time for her as well as her family. And it really gave rise to this dread she had of appearing in public, speaking in public. And she wasn't a joiner particularly. She never joined the Crime Writers Association, for instance. They begged her, understandably, to do so. And she didn't. But the Detection Club also became a kind of refuge for her, because there she met fellow crime writers and she was on their wavelength. And that's why she actually went on the committee and became the president.
Yeah, but wasn't she too shy to do any speeches?
Yes, she didn't do the public speaking, except there's one particular exception when Harry Keating, who was also a subsequent president, recall that for some reason Agatha decided that she would break her rule and declaim the initiation ritual for members of the club, and she did so with great bravura and got a round of applause from everybody present.
So the Detection Club, that nicely brings us onto it. This was something set up by, originally by writers, wasn't it?
Yes.
The idea of a sort of dining club, but also very select, invitation only still.
Okay.
Can you share anything about it with us, or is it completely secret? Anything you can share will be tantalising for us.
It's really just, as you say, a very small dining club. So by definition, it's got a limited membership because there's only that many people you can fit round a table. That's the reality. And the membership is predominantly British because, again, if you're living overseas, it's difficult to get to the meals, although there have been a number of overseas members over the years. But it was founded in 1930 by Anthony Berkeley, who was Agatha's friend, and he was her favourite detective novelist. He was a terrific writer, a strange man, but terrific writer. And she was very attached to it. She became president after Dorothy L. Sayers died in the late 50s, and she continued as president till her death. And she was very closely involved with its running. And of course, from my point of view, it's a great privilege and excitement, having been a devotee of Agatha Christie for so many years, since I was 8, to follow in her footsteps and to try to keep this strange and eccentric little organisation going.
Are you going to say anything about the ritual?
Are you allowed to?
I'll let you say a few words.
Right. Well, when one is elected to the Detection Club, one has to swear an oath on a skull, and the skull is called Eric. Though apparently, I think it was obtained by Dorothy L. Sayers from a medical student. And what are the promises?
Well, there are various. There'll be a version of the ritual in the exhibition book, but the ritual is still followed, although in a very abbreviated form nowadays. And it's essentially a joke. People often talk about the rules, and the members in the 30s talked about the rules of the club and the rules of detective fiction. But in fact, it was a kind of in-joke. And
because Agatha broke all the rules, didn't she?
Exactly. As Kate alluded to, talking about Roger Ackroyd, she broke the rules. And a lot of mythology has grown up. There's a a widely repeated story. You can even find it in the biographies of Agatha Christie, to the effect that she was threatened with expulsion from the Detection Club because she broke the rules by writing Murder of Roger Ackroyd, except that the Detection Club didn't actually exist in 1926 when that book was written. So it's complete fabrication. But then Agatha is someone who's been the subject of quite a lot of mythology, I think, over the years, because I suppose when you're that famous, that's what happens.
Indeed. And so for both of you, Agatha Christie was very much one of those defining authors.
Oh, definitely.
And could you tell us a little bit about some of the other people that have inspired you? They may not be in that particular genre of writing, they may be, but it'd be interesting to hear what has sort of grown through for you as writers, as influences.
Well, there's a lot of history in my books, especially my Wesley Peterson books, because my detective has a best friend who's county archaeologist, and there's a lot of archaeology and history. So I suppose reading history books as I was growing up, the books of Jean Clady, and all the history books, and that was all my favourite subject at school, along with English. So I suppose that as well, but definitely crime writers, yeah.
And for you, Martin?
Well, Agatha Christie was one of a generation of writers who saw the detective story to some extent as a game between the writer and the reader. You know, if I, as the writer, can put all the clues in the story, but direct your attention away from them, are you, the reader, smart enough to figure out the solution before Poirot or Miss Marple reveals all? And this idea of the game was very prevalent in the golden age of detective fiction between the wars. And that idea has always greatly appealed to me. The first series of books I wrote in the 90s, set in Liverpool, were an attempt to combine sort of gritty modern setting with golden age stories. And I was very happy with that as a concept. The only snag was that golden age fiction then was, and Agatha Christie, were really totally out of critical fashion and favour. And so not one review of any of those 8 books ever mentioned the golden age elements on which I worked so hard. So in frustration, I moved on to other subjects. But crime writing, like most things, is subject to fashion. And when golden age books started to become a bit more popular again, about 10 years ago, I'd written a book called The Golden Age of Murder, a non-fiction study of the Golden Age and Agatha, and I decided to write a new series set in the 1930s, very heavily influenced by the Golden Age tropes. And this time, the critics did pick up on the Golden Age.
They caught up.
Yeah, eventually. If you hang around long enough, sooner or later it happens.
Comes back
Yes,
round.
it's funny how Golden Age mysteries have come back into fashion. I think it was things like Jonathan Creek introduced the locked room mystery again, because there was a time when it was almost sneered at, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a book in the 1940s recommending writers not to touch locked room mysteries because everything's been done.
Yes.
But and of course, in one sense, Dorothy L. Sayers said she feared that, and this was in 1929. She said she feared that writers would run out of plot. And in one sense, that's true, but in a more important sense, it doesn't matter, because true originality is very, very, very rare. Even Roger Ackroyd, there are books historically that anticipate it in one way or another. But it's the way you tell them, as Frank
you've got
Carlson
to put
used
your
to
own
say.
spin on it.
It's the voice of the author, it's the style you bring, it's your own personality imbued in the story. That's what gives the story freshness, and that's where the originality comes in.
It's always down to the story, isn't it, the way it's told?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and the author's voice.
And when you talk about this golden age, what do you think are the factors that came together to make that particular... Obviously, we look back on it as a golden age in between the wars in terms of crime writing. But what do you think it was that brought them that cluster of writing together at that point?
Was it the aftermath of the First World War, and people wanted certainty? and people wanted a bit of comfort, the mystery solved, justice done.
Yeah, there was the war, all the slaughter. You know, Agatha's brother Monty was really irreparably damaged mentally by his war service, a very sad story, and that was replicated tens of thousands of times across the country. So there was that, but there was also the influenza pandemic. And as we know, wars change societies and pandemics change societies, and they change the way people behave. So people wanted to have fun. They wanted escape from these terrible things. And you don't have to be Poirot to think, well, maybe there's a bit of a parallel nowadays. Pandemic, wars, difficult economic circumstances. Maybe this is one of the reasons why books in the Golden Age style have suddenly become extraordinarily fashionable, even with those publishers who 20 years ago wouldn't contemplate them.
No, there's definitely been the rise of the cosier type of crime novel.
Yes, cosy crime, a term I hate. But
me too.
I've got to say, because
traditional crime.
It's really a term that I think comes from America. But if you think of Agatha Christie, think of Five Little Pigs, one of her best novels, incredibly dark finale. If you think of And Then There Were None, all these people at the island, and one by one they're being murdered. You know, not really that cosy, unless you're a very strange person. So I don't actually like the term cosy crime. I think it's bandied about as a publicity term, and I understand why. But and my books have been described as cosy by people who don't know me very well. But I think that traditional mystery, I see Kate as very much in that vein. I see my books in that vein. The traditional, you hope well-crafted story with a puzzle, but also with strong characters and a good setting.
And Kate, you bring in the supernatural as well, don't you? Into
I'm
some
a
of your
Joe
stories.
Plantagenet series, yes, set in a thinly disguised York, called Eberby, Eber Arkham.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, Joe is, he was training to be a priest, and his one of his best friends is diocesan exorcist. So there's always a slightly supernatural element to the mysteries. But again, they are traditional mysteries, as are my Wesley series, which has an archaeological bent.
And of your own characters that you write, which ones, obviously, without being too bad, which ones do you really enjoy writing? And is there anything that particularly favourite about some of them?
Well, I enjoy writing about Wesley and Joe, but one of my favourite characters is Wesley's ghastly mother-in-law, Della. She is absolutely horrendous.
Good
but
fun
she
to
is
write.
great fun to write. So if I want to laugh, I'll start.
And Martin, how about some of your characters, or some of your which ones kind of warm you when you come to write them?
Yes, I've written a series set in the Lake District, the Hannah and Daniel series. That's about a developing relationship between a cold case cop and a historian. I enjoy writing Hannah and Daniel and those books in Lakes, but I suppose my absolute favourites are the Rachel Savonay books. Rachel is a feisty character and a very ruthless and dangerous person to get on the wrong side of. And she has a kind of Captain Hastings figure in Jacob Flint, who's a journalist who's trying to understand what makes Rachel tick. And I very much enjoy the dynamic between those two characters and the stories, which are pretty intricate mysteries. And in those books, I've reintroduced something that featured in Golden Age crime fiction. The idea of the game, the clues. Some writers, not Agatha, but quite a few others, had something at the end of the book called the Clue Finder, which actually listed the pages on which all the clues in the story appear. So you can think, did I spot this one? Did I spot that one? It's a smart alecky thing to do, to be honest, but it's a lot of fun. And I always used to enjoy those books. So I decided to put a clue finder in my Rachel Savonate books, and I did it once, and it was well received, so I've kept doing it. I've done it in the new book, Miss Winter in the Library with a Knife, and it's part of this idea of the game, which doesn't appeal to everybody, but it appeals enormously to me. And it's, again, I think it's very much something that's become popular again now. So other writers are using clue finders, and I think that's fantastic.
It's a lovely tool, isn't it, as well? And essentially, in the books you write, somebody dies, but there is this playful element as well of going through, and like you say, there are ways in which, and Agatha did this as well in her writing as well, which there is a lovely way of exploring the characters as well. Do you find that's something you enjoy sort of building on as well?
Yes, definitely. Yes, creating characters and suspects. You know, they've all got something to hide, possibly, or maybe not. I love the puzzle element.
Yeah, I think humour is important in Agatha Christie. I wrote a book, The Story of Classic Crime, in which I discussed Agatha Christie's humour. And Craig Brown reviewed it. It was quite a good review, but he said you'd need a microscope to spot Agatha Christie's humour. And I think he was wrong. He's
the
a humorist.
Often comes in the characters.
But I think he's absolutely wrong. I think there's a lot of humour there, a lot of dry wit. It's not, they're not sort of glib one-liners, but there's a huge amount of humour. And the humour helps to counterpoint the darker deeds, because people die, as you rightly say, Lucy. People die. And this is one of the reasons why I don't like the cosy term, because I think when you're writing about serious subjects, even though you're writing to entertain, you want to recognise that you're talking about serious issues. So I think you need to do that, but you also want some humour whether it's the mother-in-law character or anything else, that the dynamic between Rachel and Jacob or whatever, you need something to lighten the story so it remains entertainment. And
it's often in those scenarios and settings, I suppose, in storytelling, where we see everything from emergency recovery rooms through to high drama type things, where there is this kind of dark humour that exists within it.
Oh, yes.
So it's a way of people coping through the stress of things as well. But is it something as a writer that you enjoy bringing to your audience to help them through it? Because some books can be incredibly tense to read.
Yes, Wesley's boss, Jerry Heffernan, is a Scouser like me, and he has a lot of humour. So there is that dark humour, definitely, to relieve the tension.
And how did you both find, there was more recently the Nordic noir, that became incredibly popular, but it was very much kind of thriller rather than, it kind of almost became overloaded as well. We got too much maybe, and it was very violent, it was very... Do you see that kind of thing as crime writing, or is it a different thing in itself?
Oh, it's definitely crime writing, but I always felt I ought to enjoy it, but I didn't necessarily. Because it was the fashion at the time. But I think nowadays the more traditional mystery has taken over, which has come as a relief, really, for someone who writes traditional mysteries.
Scandi noir was hugely popular, and there are some brilliant books written. I've enjoyed a lot of them. But I think the reality is quite simple. Whatever genre or subgenre you look at, there are some very good books, there are some pretty good books, and there will always be some that really aren't so good. And the problem is that when a huge number are published, and this is true whether it's cosy crime or Scandi noir or anything else, there will be a tendency, because publishers follow the market, there will be a tendency for poorer products to be produced and made available. That's what happens. And it happened, I think, a bit with Scandi Noir. And I think that it can happen with, you know, mysteries with pets as detectives and all sorts of things like that. That if you get too much of it and the quality isn't there, then the reputation of that particular subgenre will suffer. But the thing I think to bear in mind is that there are still some really good books being written, as there still are in Scandinavia, and as there were in terms of Golden Age writing in the many, many years when it wasn't critically popular.
Indeed. So both of you have been working as writers for a long time now, successful. How have you found the actual job or the publishing world has changed as well? Because at one point we were all being told, that's it, the paper book, the hardback book is not going to exist anymore. We've seen this huge revival, and we have seen that, you know, the sales have gone up. Similar with music, there's been a revival with vinyl as well.
Yes.
What changes have you seen over recent times or over your careers?
Oh, e-books, definitely. But I think that's been a good thing, because as somebody who writes a series, it means somebody can get hold of the whole series at a press of a touch of a button, whereas bookshops can only stock so many. So, yes, it has been a good thing. I still find paperbacks and hardbacks sell.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's
Absolutely.
widened readership, really. And yet there was a bit of a panic, wasn't there, when ebooks still first arrived?
Yeah, publishers like to panic.
Oh, yes, they do.
I like and admire and respect many publishers, but I'm also deeply cynical about publishing. A very, very good editor I did an anthology for, this is now going back about 20 years. She took me out for lunch in London, and at the end of lunch, always interested in trying to find things out. So I said, tell me, how do you see the market at the moment? And she thought for a minute. She said, I'll be honest with you, Martin, it's very, very difficult. Then she paused, and she said, but to be even more honest, I've been saying that to authors for the past 30 years. And, you know, my latest book, Miss Winter in the Library with a Knife, is a standalone. It's a mystery game type of book, and it was a tough book to write in many ways. And I reconcile myself to writing some of the tricky parts early on by having fun at the expense of publishers and editors and agents and that kind of thing. And that really, I named one of the characters after my editor. I also dedicated the book to her, so I'm back in her good books. It's an industry. Your agent is or should be on your side, but the publisher is trying to make money. And if you don't make money, out you go. That's the reality. And this explains why I've had many, many different publishers, because I've moved around a lot. But I've been dropped many times in more than one continent by a whole array of publishers. But it's because I've always wanted to write the books that I want to write. And it's taken a long time, but I feel that looking back, je ne regrette rien.
So can you each of you tell me a little bit more about the latest book that you've had out, just so the audience can hear a little bit more about the specific one you've got. We are going to have book signings at the end. You're more than welcome to stay. There'll be books available, or you can bring your own books to be signed. But yes, could you tell me firstly about your latest book?
Well, my latest hardback is called Killing in the Shadows, and that's a Joe Plantagenet. And that's one of it begins with a celebrity being found dead in a swimming pool. But my latest paperback is a Wesley Peterson, and that's called Deadly Remains. And that begins with a ghostwriter being found dead in a rented cottage. but it all ties in with the excavation of a World War II aircraft on Dartmoor, in which my detective's best friend, Neil Watson, is in charge, and he takes Wesley's teenage son along to help with the dig. And the aircraft happens to have been used for SOE in operations, a special operations executive, dropping spies on the continent during World War II. And I did a lot of research for it, and I found that these planes, the Lysanders, did fly from small Devon airfields. So, a lot came down in the fog on Dartmoor. So that was what it was based on.
And a lovely part of it, the research then, as part of being a writer. That must be so interesting, having to go into the detail.
Yes, I love the historical research. The next one that's out in August, I was in York, and it's a Wesley Peterson book. It's called The Chapel of Bones. And I saw this, went into this church and had an exhibition, and saw this medieval bestiary of fantastic beasts from the medieval period that the monks had written. So I have that was the basis, that was the trigger, the story.
And York is supposed to be the most haunted place in the UK?
It is. That's why my Joe Plantagenet books, I couldn't resist it.
Martin, can you tell us a little bit, without revealing too much, obviously?
Absolutely. Yes, Miss Winter in the Library with a Knife, as I say, is a book about games. So it's a contemporary book, but it's very much rooted in this Golden Age tradition. With a clue finder at the end, you're challenged to pick up all the clues, and there are a lot of them. And the premise is the ultimate crime writing cliche, really. It's 6 people, strangers to each other, are invited to a small remote village at the top of the Pennines at winter time, at Christmas time, but they're invited by a mysterious organisation called the Midwinter Trust to engage in a life-changing experience. And of course, it turns into a life-ending experience for one or two of the characters. And so that was an idea of having a lot of fun with the game idea, the puzzle idea of the detective story, and having lots of jokes at the expense of the publishing industry, because all these people are connected in one way or another with the publishing industry. There's a character who's a long-suffering author with whom I identify quite closely, and I had a lot of fun with it. The most recent Rachel Savonake book is called Hemlock Bay. Hemlock Bay being a kind of thinly disguised Hesham. But it's 1931, and a chap called Basil Palmer decides to commit a murder, but he doesn't know who he's going to murder. That's the opening, and a whole sequence of events bring Rachel Savonake, Basil, and Jacob Flint together at Hesham Bay. And again, there are many Golden Age elements. There's also a nudist camp, which attracts Jacob's attention to his, as usual, his misfortune. And that's probably one of the most intricate mysteries I've written. And in many ways, I've never had as much fun as writing that particular book. That and the next one, which is not yet published, but Hemlock Bay was absolutely blissful to write. Something that can't always be said of every novel I've written.
And it seems that very much location, landscape is something that is really enjoyed by crime writers, something Agatha Christie as well. She'd have these settings, whether it be on a train or whether it be on an island, whether it be in York, etc., in the Pennines. Is that something that really sits within that genre as well, where you're painting a landscape as much as to describe, as well as the players within it?
Oh yes, some people say the landscape is is a character, really. I sometimes wonder whether she based St Mary Mead on Cheadle. Now that's a thought.
Yes, I think that place, plot and people are the three components of a good crime story. You need a good balance between the three. Naturally, the Lake District mystery place is very, very important. Each book takes place in a different bit of the lake, so it's not quite like Midsummer Murders. The Rachel Savonate books, each novel, the setting is a kind of golden age trope. So one's set in London, one's set in a country house, one's set at the seaside, one's set in an island, and so on. So, and of course, different geographical settings give rise to different story writing possibilities. And this is part of the appeal of moving around and thinking about the place, researching the place. You mentioned research earlier. I know you do a huge amount of research, Kate,
Yes.
and I do a lot, and it's a lot of fun. Do we actually research how to commit the perfect murder? Well, couldn't possibly comment on that.
Yes, I was told once, always set your books in somewhere you'd like to visit to research. And
That's a very good
mine
idea.
are, Wesley is South Devon, around the Dartmouth area, and Joe's in York, and both places I really love.
And when you see the up-and-coming writers, the generation that's beneath you, do you think they're also taking the same genre of the Golden Age on? Are they finding that a comfortable framework to work in as well?
Yes, some are. It's, yes, very much the thing.
Yeah.
It's actually since Richard Osman, I think.
Yeah, much more so than
Yes.
was the case 20 or 30 years ago, because publishers are so much more receptive, as I mentioned earlier, to this type of book. And they go out looking for them now in a way that's quite extraordinary, considering that 20 years ago they were running away from them. Now they're sort of running towards them.
Yeah.
And I get inundated with requests to read and give quotes for books of this kind. There's a ton of them.
Yeah.
And presumably that translates through to film, from the written page. It goes through to film, podcasts, etc., that are picking up on the genre, or already have done, in terms of popularity.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, in terms of Agatha Christie, bringing it full circle round, before we go to questions from the audience, what do you think she would make of what's going on today in terms of the setting, Abney Hall, here in Cheadle, but also you said about the Golden Age coming out of a sort of critical time of a pandemic and uncertainty. Do you think she'd find this a rich writing vein?
Yes, I know Abney Hall was one of her favourite places in Cheadle. It was one of her favourite places. And some of, I think it's The Adventures of the Christmas Pudding, was dedicated to, his happy times in Abney Hall, and, the family there, and her sister. I think Abney Hall was very important to her, and I think it inspired most of her country houses, big country houses, and the setup with the servants. And
Yeah, I think Agatha's great strength was she understood human nature.
Yes.
And the fact that she did so is the reason why her books are so eagerly devoured by people all around the world, people who've never been to a country house, let alone met a butler. But they still find these universal human elements in the stories. And so I think that, she'd be a modest woman, so she'd be very surprised she was so celebrated. But she would see things today that she would want to write about in much the same way as she always did.
yes, because her stories changed. She did keep up with the times, like the servant shortage after the war, things like Third Girl, where girls started to share a flat. She did keep up with the times. I think one of her books, Murder is Announced, and said at one time in a village, everyone used to know each other, and you even got a letter of recommendation, introduction from your regiment or your, somebody a relative. But now, you know, the place is full of strangers and you don't know their background. And that, I found, you know, the way she keeps up with the times in her books, quite interesting.
Yeah, and of course that gives rise to various plot ideas.
Of course, yeah.
Yes.
Is everyone who they seem?
Everything is material.
Yes.
We're going to open it up. If anybody would like to ask some questions, I'll go to you in one moment. If you could raise your hand, say your question, and I will repeat it back just so everyone else can hear it through the microphone, if that's okay. Hello.
This is directed to Martin. I just wonder if at some point you're going to give a story about the relationship between the judge and Rachel Savneck, because you hint a lot in the books, and I've just read Hemlock Bow as well.
Right.
You hint a lot, and I want to know more about the relationship between those two.
Well, the first book, Gallows Court, if you've read that gives some indication. And
The question was about a relationship between two of the characters.
yes, Judge Savneck and Rachel Savneck, a relationship, again, where all is not as it seems. And that is something I introduced in Gallows Court, which is the first book. I've dodged it in the subsequent books, but it comes back in a significant way in the next book, which is called Fever Island.
Thank you.
Yes, hello.
You say that Agatha Christie broke all the rules. What were the rules and how did she break them?
What were the rules that Agatha Christie broke and how?
Go on.
The games typically have rules, and as the detective story became much more of a game in the 1920s, a lot of people started to discuss what the rules of the game should be.
I think
And various-
identical twins were involved.
Yeah,
weren't they?
various different writers came up with ideas. But really, it was more about literary elegance foreshadowing what was to happen in the story. So as Kate says, the idea was that you shouldn't have identical twins
More
as
than
a
one
plot
secret
device.
passage.
And the idea of that was that you couldn't have a solution that came out of left field that wasn't fair. Fair play, playing the game was really important. This is why clue finders were introduced, to show the writer is demonstrating they have played fair. But as we also said earlier, the rules were there to be broken, and they weren't things that were taken seriously at the time. Some critics have taken them seriously, and some readers have taken them seriously. But as with writing great music, rules are there to be broken, and the great composers break them. And the same applies to writing. Various writers of all kinds have talked about the rules, but that really there are no rules other than to write a great story. There was one particular rule that was allegedly broken in the murder of Roger Ackroyd, but we're not going to say which rule
we'll
it
spoil
was.
it for you.
But I think that the rules are fun, but one shouldn't place too much emphasis upon them, because at the end of the day, they don't matter that much. What matters is a great story, I think.
And they could be very constraining as well, and as a creative, presumably you want to keep pushing forward.
Absolutely,
Yes.
and somebody like Agatha in particular was of that mind.
Yes, I'm reading an Agatha Christie at the moment for the next book club, and I know the solution, and I'm looking for the hints, and it's fascinating. They're so subtle.
She should have written a clue finder.
Yes,
Did she never write one herself then?
it's a brilliant solution actually, but they are so subtle. I mean, I can spot them, but I think if you didn't know the solution already, you wouldn't.
Yeah. Do we have another question at all? Does anybody? Yes, at the back, the gentleman.
Hi, as established writers, where do you stand on the rise of the celebrity crime writer? Does it become more celebrity book, or does it actually sort of help with the genre generally?
Oh, good
This
question.
is a question about the rise of the celebrity crime writer.
Oh, go on, Martin.
Well, personally, I,
And there was a pause.
He's thinking up the lawyer's
yeah, I honestly don't think it matters. It's a big mistake to be jealous of writers who have a better profile, bigger publicity budget. It is self-defeating. What matters with writers and the books they produce is the quality of what they produce. And there are some books written by celebrity writers which, in my opinion, are extremely good, and there are others that are less good, and there are others that are poor. And of course there are rumours about ghost-written books and all that kind of thing. But to take the obvious example, Richard Osman, I think his books are very good. He can write. He's very intelligent, and he writes well, and he's worked out a way of doing something that's very appealing and entertaining. And what's not to like about that? It brings people to the genre. It's thoroughly impressive. But you know, there are others who I will not name who I'm a bit less keen on.
It's a bit like a running race where somebody's allowed to have a few yards start.
Yeah, but it was ever thus. And if you go back to the 19th century, I've seen letters from writers complaining about their publicity budgets and you know, begging their publishers to make more of an effort. And, you know, why is so and so getting better treatment than me? It's an eternal issue, and the danger is, from the writer's point of view, if it distracts you from writing the best book of which you're capable. I think you have to shut out. I don't really care what other people do. From my perspective as a writer, I want to write the books I want to write, full stop. As a reader, I'm interested in reading good books, whoever writes them, whether they're celebrities or people I've never heard of from places I'll never visit. It's all about quality at the end of the day.
Great. Oh, yes, please.
Do you always have the whole plot mapped out? But does it sometimes change as you start writing the book?
The question was, do you always have the whole plot mapped out, or does it sometimes change as you're writing the book?
Well, I always start with a sort of flow chart, Martin knows, and you know, I have the plot mapped out, but I don't stick to that at all. It changes completely as I'm writing the book, and I get better ideas, and that's not really working, and yes, and sometimes I often change my murderer as well. So,
I've adopted a variety of different methods. My early books, the Harry Devlin books, Liverpool books, were very carefully plotted, but the more experienced and confident I became, I took more chances and adopted different points of view and so on. Lake District books were written differently. With those, I knew who had killed whom and why, but I didn't necessarily know much more than that, didn't know how the mystery was going to be solved. The first Rachel Savanaugh book I wrote completely as an experiment. I didn't know what was going to happen. So it took me 3 years to write it, because I kept having to start again. And all the subsequent books, I've known what was going to happen. I've never changed my murderer. This is one. There are a lot of similarities between Kate's writing mine, but this is one big difference. I've never changed my murderer. The motivation of the crime is always pretty central, whatever the book in my case. But in terms of technique, it's fun to try to write books in different ways. And I tried different styles. Even within a series, I try to write each book in a rather different way, so that it feels fresh to me, and I'm very motivated and energized by it most of the time. And that I work on the premise that if I feel fresh and energized, there's a better chance that the reader will be motivated. The variety does have its drawbacks, you know, because not everybody will necessarily like all the books equally. That's the risk you run, but for me it's a risk that I'm happy to take.
I always feel my writing feels fresher if I don't stick to the plan and I let it develop.
Can I ask as well, where do you have a principal study or room where each of you do your writing? What is that room like?
Oh, it's a sort of a chalet in the garden.
And is it somewhere you can literally put the plot on the walls and
Yes, I've
go
got all
through?
my research books in there, and the place is a terrible mess.
Martin, how about you?
Yeah, I write in the dining room. I was going to write in the loft, and then 2 small children. I was working full-time as a lawyer. I was writing as well. Thought, well, if I go off to the loft, I'll never see the family. And whilst they might welcome this, I didn't. So I decamped to the dining room, and I've stayed there ever since.
Do we have a final question? Obviously, you can do more questions when they come to sign books. Please go up and have a chat. But yes, just here. Thank you. The question was, do you find it hard to kill characters, especially if you like them?
I tend not to like to... Yes, if they're likeable, but if they're not likeable, I quite enjoy it.
Yeah, not particularly, because going back to the idea of motive and the importance of the psychology, particularly with the Lake District series, one of the starting points for me is often to think, why would this apparently very pleasant individual want to murder this other apparently very pleasant individual? And that, I find that quite a thought-provoking way to figure out the bare bones of a story. Of course, nobody's wholly likeable, nobody's wholly dislikable. And part of the key with writing any kind of fiction is that you're exploring the full range of human nature. So everybody has their different characteristics and flaws. And I think one of the drawbacks of some of the old Golden Age books was that you got these horrible blackmailers who had absolutely no redeeming features, and the other standard victim was that nobody mourned or thought about as soon as they were murdered, except who'd done it. These extraordinarily stupid, very rich, very elderly people who summon all the members of the family to their country house and announce that they're about to change the will. Guess what happens then?
I think Agatha was guilty of that in a few, like Simeon Lee and Hercule Poirot's Christmas.
Well, on behalf of Cheadle Civic Society, I'd like to thank both of you. Kate, Martin, you've been entertaining as always. Like I said, there'll be signing books just here in this little vestry if you want to queue after the event. There are also teas and coffees available, soft drinks at the back of the hall, which go towards helping keep maintaining this place. But on behalf of us all, thank you very much.
Well, thank you.